Hey, Archie, when we retire, how important is the choice of state that we live in determining our retirement lifestyle?
Well, Rob, it's actually really important, especially when considering the largest expense most of us face in retirement, which is taxes. So let's dive in. Weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. This is Last Paycheck. Welcome back to the Last Paycheck podcast, brought to you by Hoxton Planning and Management. We're your hosts, CFP professionals Archie Hoxton and Rob Hoxton. And today, we're going to talk about the geography of retirement. In other words, choosing a new place to live when you retire, whether it's moving somewhere warmer or somewhere less costly or a combination of both. And just the tax implications of making that decision, because there are 50 different states that you can move to and 50 different sort of tax setups that you want to be. You don't need to be aware of all 50, but you want to be aware of wherever you're looking at, kind of what the tax impact is going to be on your financial plan.
Yeah, we're not talking about other countries. So if you're someone who's interested in being an expat and living in a different country because you think you've got cheaper, lower cost of living or lower taxes, we're not covering that in this episode. This is just within the greater U.S.
Yeah. So this is a really important consideration. There are states that obviously we all know have higher state taxes than others. There are states that offer specific benefits to retirees. So it's important, and you can have kind of a wide range of possibilities. If you move to a place like Wyoming, let's say you love the outdoors, you like kind of having lots of space to yourself. You have no income tax, you have low sales and low property tax. There are or you could kind of go on the other end of the spectrum, move to a place like New York, if you love the city, or California, and end up with quite an increase potentially in what you currently pay in taxes. And so, it's important to kind of plan this out, and it's a big consideration, and it can actually result in a substantial change in your take-home income. And that's really important. When you're planning for retirement, you have to know how much you need to spend, and your largest expense, really for all of us, is likely to be taxes. So it's a very important consideration as you're planning your retirement.
And this is all sort of in flux too. I know over the last 20 years, the number of states that have sort of preferential tax treatment for retirees has increased. At one time, it seems like maybe Florida was the only really attractive from an income tax standpoint state. But there have been more states that have sort of joined the bandwagon. And I guess it's because they want to attract, affluent retirees, maybe from the Northeast. But it seems like there are more states and it's changing. And I know our home state of West Virginia is changing as well. I mean, in West Virginia, you have to pay state income tax on your Social Security benefits, but that's changing in 2026, I believe.
Yeah. It's been phasing out over time, and next year it'll be completely phased out.
Completely phased out, yeah.
Yeah, so. and actually most states don't actually tax your Social Security benefits. There are 9 that still do. One of them is West Virginia, and that's ending next year. So it's become more popular for states not to tax it. The federal government,
the other states that still do are Colorado, Connecticut, Minnesota, Montana, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Utah, and Vermont.
Right. And for this year, West Virginia. Next year, not West Virginia anymore. Now, and there are also of those states we mentioned that do, they offer some of them offer some deductions and sort of like ways to kind of ease that burden, offset that. States that have recently eliminated the Social Security tax are Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska. So it's becoming increasingly popular, and who knows, we may come to a point in time where most states, do away with that. The federal government, on the other hand, is likely to actually probably continually tax more and more over time.
Yeah. The maximum percentage of your Social Security benefit that the feds tax is 85%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
as of now,
subject to change.
Yeah,
that's right.
The other big source of retirement income for most people are like your 401k, IRAs, and withdrawals from those. And again, it's a spectrum. There are states that don't have income tax at all, and those states, if you're taking money out of your IRA or 401k, receiving Social Security, it's not even going to be relevant because you're not going to have income tax at all. You're just going to be worried about federal tax. But there are states that have state taxes that actually don't tax IRA withdrawals and 401k withdrawals. But this is important because if you have let's say a 4% effective tax rate in your state, which is reasonable.
Which is probably in the low end, right?
Probably in the low end, yeah. Mm-hmm. But that you could see that being a reasonable amount. 4 to 6% is probably pretty typical. Let's say you take $30,000 out of your IRA just to support your living expenses. Well, that's $1,200 that you're going to pay just in the state tax. So, and that's every year.
And the federal is probably more.
Oh yeah, federal is definitely going to be more. And more than likely, so in order to do that, you're going to have to withhold tax from that withdrawal or pay estimated income taxes. So now there are states like Alaska and Mississippi that just don't tax those, even though they have state tax. They don't actually tax that particular type of income, which is super nice.
Alaska's great. I mean, from a tax standpoint, of course, you got to be willing to live in the dark for much of the year and have some cold weather, but
I want to attract people into the state. Yeah.
As you start to get closer to retirement, you've got to start planning for the big decisions like where you're going to live. And we have a fantastic free tool, no obligation, that you can access called the Retirement Readiness Checklist. Just visit the website and we'll send it to you. No charge, no obligation.
Another big area of tax that's important to think about, a type of tax, if you're going to be moving and buying a home somewhere that you're going to stay potentially permanently for retirement, is property taxes. Property taxes can vary widely depending on what part of the country you're moving to, what state you're moving to. So one good example would be, let's say you live in Alabama where the average property tax paid is $700 a year. But maybe you grew up going to the New Jersey shore as a kid and you decide you want to move out there and be close to that and spend some time on the beach. And so you buy a house up there. Well, the average annual property tax paid in New Jersey is $9,300 a year. So, that's over $8,500 a year increase that you now have to budget in to your retirement income. That, if you had moved down to the beach in Alabama, which is becoming more popular in recent days because of these lower costs, you'd have that $8,000 to spend on whatever you wanted.
On the other hand, if you've spent your whole life in New Jersey and all your friends and family are in New Jersey, moving to Alabama might be a little bit of a culture shock. Right? I love Alabama. I love the South. Love the warm weather. Love the people. But that might be a bit of a culture shock when you could probably accomplish much of that at least from an income tax standpoint, just by moving a little distance to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, and then still be relatively close to family and friends. So if you sell your house in New Jersey, if that's where you live, and maybe move to Pennsylvania, you're going to get some big benefits just from what may be a fairly short move, depending upon what part of New Jersey you live in.
Yeah. I mean, if you live close to the border, that could be a really easy a really easy move, and you're still a short drive
Yeah,
to
and
everything you want to be
everything's
close
pretty
to.
close together in much of where the big population area is in New Jersey. I mean, I remember when I worked in New York, my boss used to commute from Princeton,
Hmm.
from Newtown, Pennsylvania, into New York City, and
Yeah, I remember.
he would have like 14 different modes of transportation trying to get there, and it would take him 2 hours. He had all these advanced degrees, but in certain parts of the country, you can just cross a state line and improve your tax situation and
Yeah.
still be pretty close to where you want to be.
Another big jump like that would be Maryland to West Virginia. If
Yeah,
you just pop over, if you're close, right over to West Virginia, you're going to save money on just about everything that you do.
just about everything.
The house that you buy is going to be cheaper. The taxes that you pay on it are going to be cheaper. The income taxes are going to be cheap. I mean, it goes on and on. So that's one creative way. If it maybe you don't have like a place that you want to move to, you like the area that you live and the proximity to certain things, whether it's family or potentially, a city that you like or a beach that you like. Crossing a state line can be a huge amount of savings without adding a whole lot of distance.
Another scenario that I think of that could be potentially problematic is if you move to a state that doesn't have an income tax but has a high sales tax or has a high property tax rate. You know,
Or both.
or both, and suddenly you're in your the golden years, or maybe the years past your golden years, and you have something that happens that impacts your amount of income. If you can't pay your property tax, you could find yourself losing your house. So there are lots of considerations to
Hmm.
this kind of planning that you need to be aware of, and consider all of these scenarios. What aren't you considering that could come up to bite you in the future?
Well, and one thing to think about is if you're moving somewhere with no income tax, you you're probably going to make up for that in some way. So there's always a trade-off. The state still needs some revenue. So, you may end up paying a much, much higher sales tax rate,
Yeah.
which that can add up. That's just like your day to day. There are some exemptions for seniors in states that have higher sales taxes often. There are some states that have no sales tax. Um, you have to think, okay, is it really worth going to a state with no sales tax if the other taxes are going to be higher, depending on where you're coming from and going to? So you have to sort of
Especially
work
property
all these things
tax.
together.
You have some control over how much sales tax you pay, some control, but you have zero control over how much you pay in property taxes.
Yeah.
Your property appreciates in value. The appraiser comes out and adjusts your appraised value, and then the taxing authority says, "Oh, we're also going to increase the rate at which that property is taxed," and you have zero control over it.
Yeah. In certain areas where you live close to multiple states, because like you said, you have some control over your sales tax. Going back to the Pennsylvania and New Jersey scenario, you move to the Philadelphia area of Pennsylvania, very, very close to New Jersey, also very close to Delaware. So maybe you lived in New Jersey, you love New Jersey, your family's there, you like doing stuff there, but you want to save some money on property taxes, so you move to Pennsylvania. You drive into Delaware with short drive, and you do your shopping. No sales tax.
No
And
sales tax in
no
Delaware.
sales tax in Delaware. So, or if you have a big purchase, like my wife's from Delaware, I go up to Delaware a lot. Sometimes it's nice to go, if you have a big purchase, to buy it in Delaware. No sales tax. So you save some money that way. So you can kind of, in that case, you could really finagle a decent situation. Or again, just move to Alaska or Wyoming and pay very, very little in-state taxes of any kind. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's some lots of ways to go about it. But one other honorable mention would be inheritance and estate tax.
Mhm.
So most people don't have to worry about federal estate taxes. The exemption is so high right now. Very, very few people are actually dealing with it. However, the state estate taxes and inheritance taxes are a little different. The exemptions are lower. 12 states have an estate tax. And I'll also clarify the difference between estate and inheritance tax. An estate tax is a tax paid by your estate, from your estate. Normally, it doesn't have to be. If you haven't planned, it's paid on your estate. It's calculated on your estate and then paid from your estate. And inheritance tax is actually paid by the beneficiary. So
the person receiving
the inheritance pays the taxes on the inheritance. There is one state that has both, and it's Maryland, which, that seems a little like double taxation, but that's the way it is. So be mindful of that.
Yeah, estate taxes are double taxation anyway, right? So maybe that's triple or quadruple tax.
Quadruple.
Yeah, that's right. So.
Yeah. So, anyway, so there are 12 states with estate taxes, and there are 6 states with inheritance taxes, and Maryland is the only state with both.
Yeah.
They have varying exemption levels. It's much more likely that if you have a large estate, that you'll end up with estate tax liability at the state level. So plan ahead for that. Talk to an attorney that is in the state that you're moving to, or if you're staying in your own state, just to make sure you're kind of covering your bases and planning for that potential tax ahead of time. And yeah, that's really the best thing that you can do. But if you're moving, get your ducks in a row as you're doing that, and make sure your affairs are in order when you move. So anyway, that's a big topic. We hope that this was helpful to you. And we would love to hear if you have ideas for anything you want to learn more about that we can do an episode on. Please share them in the comments, or if you have thoughts or questions about this topic, again, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you all. We'll respond and maybe do an episode based on your idea. And then, yeah, if you subscribe to the channel, we know we have viewers who watch, who are not subscribed. Subscribing helps us a lot. So if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your family and friends, and
hit the bell for
notifications. Yep. So when we episodes drop every Wednesday, but a little reminder. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next time. You've been watching Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. If you like this show, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Last Paycheck is available anywhere you get your podcasts.